Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé I won't pay for a wedding she wants if her affair partner is attending? My fiancé wants the man she cheated on me with to attend our wedding. Yes, you read that right. I, 32M, am engaged to Sarah, 30F. And a few months ago, I discovered she had an affair with a guy I'll call Jake. Now Sarah is insisting that Jake should be at our wedding as a guest because he's supposedly a friend to her. I'm beyond furious and hurt by this, and told her flat out that I refuse to pay for any wedding if he's going to be there. It's turned into a huge fight, and I'm questioning everything. So I need to ask, am I the asshole for putting my foot down like this? Some background. Sarah and I have been together for 5 years, engaged for the last 8 months. We were, or so I thought, really happy. I've never loved anyone as much as I love her. I was over the moon when I proposed, and she said yes. We started planning an elegant wedding for summer 2024. Nothing too crazy, but still about 150 guests. Nice venue, open bar, the works. I'm fortunate to have a good job and some savings, and I always intended to pay for the majority of the wedding expenses, since her family isn't well off. Sarah was thrilled and immediately started talking about her dream wedding. The dress, the flowers, her ideal venue by a lake. Seeing her happy made me happy, at least until everything blew up. About 4 months ago, I found out Sarah had been having an affair. It's still hard to even write those words. To be honest, I had noticed she was acting strange for a while. She'd get jumpy when her phone buzzed, or she'd say she was working late a lot more often. At first, I brushed it off, because I trusted her completely. I never imagined she would cheat. I hate that I was so oblivious, but hindsight is 20/20. One night, we were at home and she was in the shower when her phone started lighting up on the coffee table. I glanced at it and saw a preview of a text from some guy named Jake that said something like, "I miss you too." My heart just about stopped. I knew any rational person would probably not jump to conclusions from that alone, but I had this awful gut feeling. My hands were shaking when I opened her phone. She had no lock on it, or at least she used to trust me enough not to hide it. There were dozens of messages between her and this Jake. Flirty, romantic, explicit messages. Some from that very day, saying things like, "Can't wait to see you again," and her replying, "I can't stop thinking about last night." I felt physically sick reading that. I confronted her the moment she came out of the shower. I must have looked like a ghost, holding her phone and reading those texts. I remember my voice was shaking. I just asked, "Who the hell is Jake?" She froze and went pale, then started sobbing and apologizing immediately. She didn't even try to lie or make an excuse. She just collapsed onto the couch, crying, saying she was sorry over and over. That whole night is a blur of yelling and crying. She admitted that Jake was a coworker of hers, 29M if it matters, and they'd been seeing each other for about 3 months. It started apparently when we had a big fight about 2 weeks after our engagement party. I honestly barely recall that fight now. It was over something trivial like her feeling I wasn't involved enough in wedding planning early on because I was swamped at work. She said she felt lonely and stressed, and one night after work, she went out for drinks with some colleagues, including Jake, and she ended up kissing him. After that, it spiraled into a full affair. She swore it was only emotional at first, but eventually they slept together. A few times. Her words. I wonder how many is a few. That detail still eats at me. I was devastated. I outright asked if she was in love with him, if she wanted to leave me for him. She immediately said no, that it was a stupid mistake, that she loves me and never wanted to hurt me. According to her, Jake had no idea she was engaged at first, which I doubt because she wears her ring at work. But she claims she never told him about me until after they'd already been physical. Supposedly, once he found out, he felt guilty, but they continued the affair anyway for another month. She said eventually she tried to cut it off because the guilt was too much for her, and she knew she was ruining our relationship. The texts I saw were from a week after she'd allegedly ended it, which obviously meant it hadn't fully ended. I left the house that night. I grabbed my keys and drove to a friend's place because I just couldn't be around her. She was hysterical, begging me not to go, literally on her knees crying and grabbing at my arm. It was awful. I spent a few days at my buddy Mark's apartment, trying to figure out what to do. I was an emotional wreck. 1 minute angry beyond belief, the next minute sobbing my eyes out. Part of me wanted to call off the engagement right then and there, but another part of me still loved her so much it hurt. During that time, she blew up my phone with texts and long emails professing her love and remorse, saying she would do anything to fix this, that she had cut all contact with Jake, even showed me an email she sent him telling him it was over for good and that she regretted everything. She also apparently requested to transfer to a different department at work so she wouldn't have to see him. She sounded genuinely remorseful and desperate. After about a week, I agreed to meet her in person to talk. When we met, she looked like she hadn't slept at all. She had dark circles and was thinner. Later found out she barely ate that week. She brought handwritten letters she'd been writing to me each day I was gone, each one basically saying how she hates herself for what she did. I'll be honest, seeing her so shattered melted some of my anger. We talked/argued for hours. There were lots of tears from both of us. She answered all my questions. Some answers hurt a lot, like that they didn't use protection once. That freaked me out, but she got tested after and was all clear. She kept saying I could ask her anything, and she'd be truthful. She seemed willing to do whatever it took to salvage our relationship. In the end, I made a decision that I'm still not sure was right. I decided to try to forgive her and work things out. I love her deeply, and I truly thought we could maybe rebuild the trust with time and effort. It wasn't an easy choice. A big part of me was telling me to walk away and never look back. But I had invested 5 years in this relationship, and I genuinely believed she was remorseful and that this affair was a horrible mistake she'd never repeat. Maybe I was being naive or too hopeful, but I chose to give her another chance on the condition that she cut all possible ties with Jake and that we do couples counseling. So we started counseling and slowly resumed living together after a couple weeks. Those first couple of months were so hard. I was triggered by little things. If she was a few minutes late coming home from work, I'd start imagining the worst. My self-esteem was shattered. But true to her word, she changed departments at her job to avoid seeing Jake and even changed her phone number, at my request, so he couldn't contact her. She even let me install a location-sharing app so I could see where she was. I know that sounds controlling, and I hated feeling like I needed it, but full transparency was one of the only ways I could even begin to trust again. To her credit, she accepted all of this without complaint. She really did seem like she was trying very hard to earn my trust back. Fast forward to 2 months later, about 2 months ago from now. We're still engaged, still in counseling, and starting to tentatively continue wedding planning. At this point, I hadn't told any of our family or friends about the affair. Not a soul. I felt it was too humiliating, and also if we were going to work it out, I didn't want everyone we know to hate her. In hindsight, maybe I protected her too much, but that's where we were. Outwardly, to everyone else, we were a normal, happy, engaged couple excited for the wedding. Sarah had initially said she wanted a small wedding after the affair, because she felt guilty having a big fairy tale wedding given what happened. But as months passed and things felt more normal, she started talking about the original plans again, the 150 guest count, fancy venue, etc. I figured that was a sign she felt we were healing. I was still uneasy about a huge celebration. Part of me felt like I didn't quite deserve to celebrate like that. It's hard to explain. But I also wanted her to be happy. And, to be completely honest, I still had some lingering doubts about spending tens of thousands of dollars when our relationship had this big crack in it. However, I had promised I'd fund the wedding long before I knew of the affair, and I wanted to keep my word if we were truly reconciling. Then, the issue of the guest list came up. We were at home one evening, going over a preliminary guest list together, just kind of brainstorming names of who we'd want to invite. We both have big families and lots of friends from college and work, so we knew we might have to make cuts eventually. As we're jotting down names, she lists some of her coworkers from her old department, the one she left. That caught my attention, because she hadn't really stayed in touch with many of them after switching, except maybe a couple of female friends. Then she sort of mumbles, "And maybe I should invite Jake?" I swear, I did a double take and just stared at her, expecting her to say she was joking. I said something like, "Excuse me, what?" She avoided eye contact and said, I don't want it to be awkward at work or with our other friends if I don't invite him. People might wonder why. He was kind of part of our friend group too. For context, we used to sometimes hang out with her work friends, grab drinks after work, etc. And I had met Jake a couple of times before I knew about the affair. At those times, he was introduced just as one of her team members. I honestly found him a bit obnoxious, the kind of guy who makes slightly flirty jokes even if he's got a girlfriend. So I already didn't like him much, even before the bombshell. When Sarah said that, my blood pressure went through the roof. I felt a mix of anger, betrayal, again, and sheer disbelief. I asked her why on earth she would even want him there. She got teary and said, "I don't want him there in any personal way. It's just that if we pointedly exclude him, our coworkers will notice, and it might lead to uncomfortable questions. I don't want people at work finding out about what happened. I'd rather just invite him and treat him like any other coworker so it doesn't look suspicious." I cannot describe how insane that sounded to me. Here I was, still struggling every day with the fact that this guy touched my fiancé, that they had an affair under my nose, and now she wants to have him sit there and watch us get married as if he's just some pal. I told her absolutely not. I said I don't give a damn what excuse we have to make. He is not coming to our wedding. We went back and forth, voices rising. She kept saying it would look weird to not invite him when we were inviting a bunch of other people from her old team. She also tried to say that it might come off as petty or like she was harboring resentment, which might start rumors. I basically yelled, "Gee, wonder why we might not want him there. Could it be because he was sleeping with the bride?" She started sobbing and saying I was bringing up the affair again when she's been working so hard to move past it. That opened up all the old wounds, and we had a really explosive argument. I shouted things like, "How can you be so stupid to even think I'd be okay with this?" And she shouted back that I was overreacting and that nothing is going on now, he's just a friend. At one point she actually said, "I thought you forgave me. If you forgave me, why are you acting like this about him coming? It's not like I'm going to cheat on you at our wedding." I couldn't believe she was trying to turn it around on me for not forgiving her enough. Eventually, I told her I needed her to stop even considering this. I said, "Frankly, if she invites Jake, I'm not going to pay a single dime for the wedding. I'll take it all off the table." For context, we have separate finances mostly, and I'm the one who has been saving and planning to foot most of the wedding cost. She might contribute a bit from her own savings, but the majority is supposed to come from me/my family. We hadn't yet merged any finances since we aren't married yet. I admit I basically gave an ultimatum, him or a fully funded dream wedding, your choice. I told her I found it incredibly disrespectful that she'd even want him there, and that it made me seriously question her understanding of the hurt she caused. She got quiet when I said that. Then she got angry, which surprised me because up to then she'd mostly been crying. She accused me of trying to control her friends and punishing her forever for something she already apologized for. She said, "If you trust me, it shouldn't matter who's at the wedding, because you know I'm committed to you." I replied that this wasn't about trust at that point. It's about basic respect and not rubbing salt in my wound on our wedding day, of all days. We ended the fight with me repeating that if she insists on inviting him, the wedding is off the table as far as I'm concerned. Since that fight a week ago, things have been ice cold between us. Sarah has been alternating between trying to convince me in a calmer way, "Please, can we just talk about this reasonably?" and being cold herself because I hurt her feelings by threatening not to pay. It's like she doesn't see the huge problem with inviting him. Or maybe she does, but she's more concerned with appearances to her friends and coworkers. I've also been sleeping in our guest room, barely speaking to her. The wedding planning is totally on pause. At this point, I'm starting to question if the wedding should even happen at all. I love her, but this whole issue is making all the old betrayal feelings come rushing back. And the way she's so fixated on having him there, or avoiding gossip, instead of prioritizing my feelings, is really breaking something inside me. She tells me I'm overreacting and that I'm being an asshole for basically holding the wedding funds hostage to get my way. She also said something like, "Do you know how embarrassing it will be for me at work if we don't invite him and everyone finds out why? I don't want everyone gossiping about my personal mistakes." From her perspective, I guess she's terrified of people finding out she cheated, so she thinks the solution is to just act like everything is normal and he's just another guest. But for me, the idea of shaking that man's hand at my wedding, of making nice with him like we're buddies, of watching him in the audience as I marry the woman he slept with, I just can't. I haven't told anyone in real life about this fight yet. None of our friends or family know about the affair, let alone this new conflict. I'm too embarrassed to even bring it up. Honestly, I'm tempted to call off the wedding entirely if this is how it's going to be, but I wanted to get an outside perspective first. Am I really being unreasonable? I mean, maybe from her point of view, she's truly never going to do anything with him again, and it's all in the past. But I can't help feeling like this is a huge slap in the face. I also wonder if I'm a fool for even staying with her after that betrayal, and this whole thing is making me question that choice all over again. Some days I wake up and look at her, and all I can picture is her with him. Anyway, that's the situation. I told my fiancé I will not pay for the wedding she wants if her affair partner is invited to attend. She thinks I'm being an asshole by using money to control the guest list and holding a grudge. I think I'm justified given the circumstances. So, Reddit, AITA, Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming response on my original post. I was honestly blown away by how many of you took the time to give me advice and perspective. The majority of replies and messages told me I was not the asshole and that my feelings were valid. A lot of you also said things along the lines of, "Dude, the fact she even wants him there is a massive red flag, and you should reconsider the whole relationship." It was hard to read some of those comments, but deep down I knew people had a point. I think I needed that outside reality check because I'd been gaslighting myself into thinking, maybe I was overreacting. I realize now that I was actually underreacting to how messed up this situation was. So after reading through comments for a day or so, I decided I had to have a serious follow-up conversation with Sarah. At the very least, I wanted to see if she understood my perspective at all. I was prepared to stick to my boundary that Jake is not welcome, and frankly, I was also prepared to delay or cancel the wedding if we couldn't get past this. When I approached Sarah to talk, she seemed relieved at first that I was finally willing to talk calmly. She had been tiptoeing around me for days. We sat down and I calmly explained, again, why I cannot tolerate Jake being at our wedding. I told her that every time I think about our wedding day now, I feel dread at the idea of seeing his face there. I told her that inviting him would basically taint the entire event for me, knowing what he did with her. I laid it all out without yelling this time, just really trying to get through to her. She listened quietly, but I could tell she was getting emotional. She said she understands how I feel, but she still thinks I'm overestimating how bad it would be if he attended. She actually said maybe it would be healing, like showing that we've all moved past it. I just stared at her in disbelief when she said that. It felt so out of touch. I responded that from my perspective, it wouldn't be healing at all. It would be like pouring salt in a wound and would feel like a mockery of our marriage. I also asked her why Jake's feelings or avoiding awkwardness for him or others should matter more than my feelings on our damn wedding day. She started crying softly and said it wasn't like that, she just wanted to avoid drama in our social circle. She then offered a compromise. What if he just came to the ceremony, which would be in a public place with lots of people, but not the reception? That way, she said, he can see I married you and know he's truly out of my life. She framed it like it was for closure or something. I honestly couldn't believe she was still suggesting any scenario involving him. I told her that was absolutely not acceptable to me. I said I don't want him in the same building, the same city block on our wedding day. At this point, I was so frustrated I almost walked out of the conversation. I think Sarah sensed I was at a breaking point. She then broke down and said, okay, I won't invite him. I won't. I'm sorry. Please don't call off the wedding. I was just trying to make everything normal, but I see now it's hurting you. She was bawling at this point, like full-on ugly crying. I admit, I still have a soft spot when she cries, so I hugged her and we both ended up crying. It was a very emotional moment. I truly thought we had finally gotten on the same page. She said she would throw out any idea of him coming and that she only wanted me to be happy and comfortable on our big day. For a brief moment, I felt a huge wave of relief. Like, okay, we can move past this. We even talked about possibly doing a smaller wedding or eloping, because this whole thing had soured our excitement for a big event. She said she was fine with whatever I wanted to do for the wedding, big or small, as long as I stayed with her. We ended that talk holding each other for a long time. It felt like we might come out of this nightmare stronger, but unfortunately, that relief was short-lived. Here's where things took another turn, and not a good one. A couple of days after that emotional conversation and her agreeing not to invite Jake, I found out something that blew it all up again. Remember how she had supposedly cut off all contact with Jake? Well, it turns out that was a lie, or at least it didn't hold up under pressure. 2 days ago, I was using our iPad, which is synced to her phone via iCloud. We had set this up back when we trusted each other, ironically. A notification popped up, a new text message, and I could see it in preview. It was from Jake. My heart dropped into my stomach when I saw his name. The preview said, I understand why he, and then cut off. I immediately opened the Messages app, shaking, and read the conversation. There weren't a ton of messages, but it was clearly a continuation of something. It started with Sarah texting him first, the day after our big fight, before she agreed to not invite him. She basically told him that I found out she wanted to invite him, and that I was furious. She wrote something like, he knows about us, and he really doesn't want you there. It's turned into a big issue. She also said to him, maybe it's best if you don't come, at least the reception. Yes, she was already trying her ceremony, only compromise with him behind my back. Jake responded that he totally understands, and that the last thing he wanted was to cause problems between us. He said something like, I won't come if it will make things easier, I just want you to be happy. He also asked her if she was okay, and that he was worried about her because she seemed stressed at work. The most recent message, the one that popped up, was him continuing, I understand why he doesn't want me there. I feel awful that I'm the cause of all this. Let me know if there's anything I can do. So basically, they had been texting back and forth about our fight and about him potentially not coming, etc. The bottom line is, she broke the no contact rule and looped him into our private conflict. I can't even describe how I felt reading those messages. It was like a second betrayal on top of the first. I was literally shaking with anger. She not only broke her promise about no contact, but she involved him in our personal issues, almost like he was a confidant or mediator. It felt like she and Jake were, a team, managing the situation of me. I saw red. I immediately confronted Sarah with the evidence. She looked stunned and then burst into tears again and started apologizing again. She said she was just scared and didn't know what to do after our fight, and since he already knew something was wrong, apparently he asked her at work why she looked upset, she felt like she had to explain to him. She said she only texted him to let him know why he wouldn't be invited, to avoid awkwardness later. I told her that was bullshit. She was seeking emotional support from the guy she cheated with about her relationship with the guy she cheated on. What the actual hell? I told her right then that we're done. Wedding is off. I can't do this anymore. I said I must have been out of my mind to even try to forgive her in the first place. I was just so angry and hurt. She was sobbing, begging me not to do this, saying it wasn't what it looked like, and that she only loves me. I told her she sure has a funny way of showing it, by prioritizing her affair partner's feelings over mine at every turn. It got really heated. She was pleading, swearing she'll cut him off completely for real this time, and that she would do anything. But her words felt hollow. This was the second big breach of trust, after I had already forgiven the first. I just can't keep turning a blind eye. I ended up packing a bag and telling her I need space and time to think, and I went back to stay at my friend Mark's place. That was 2 days ago. Since then, I've told my parents and a couple of close friends the truth about why the wedding is off. I'm embarrassed, heartbroken, and honestly humiliated, but I had to tell people something. My mom was absolutely livid at Sarah and basically said, I never liked that she-devil. I think that's just her being protective mom. She actually used to get along with Sarah fine. Sarah's parents have been calling and texting me too. I think she finally told them she cheated because her mom left me a voicemail in tears apologizing for her daughter's behavior and saying she understands why I can't continue. It's a mess. As of now, I'm staying at Mark's, trying to process everything. I haven't seen Sarah in person since I left. She's flooded my phone with texts about how she's crying nonstop, how I'm the love of her life, how she'll never forgive herself. She's also sent long emails taking full accountability, a bit late, I think, and even promises that she'll quit her job if it means never seeing or talking to Jake again. But I feel like I've heard it all before, you know? It feels like too little, too late. So that's where things stand. I've essentially broken off the engagement, though I haven't officially announced anything beyond close family/friends. I'm devastated, but also oddly relieved in a way, because the constant stress and doubt were eating me alive. I haven't made final decisions about the relationship, but honestly, I don't see how I could ever marry her now. Trust is shattered all over again. I feel like an idiot for giving her another chance after the affair, only to have it blow up like this. But I'm also trying to remind myself that I did what I thought was right at the time. I loved, maybe still love her, and forgiveness felt like the right path then. It just turned out she hadn't fully earned that forgiveness. I'll update again if anything major happens, but for now, the wedding is off, and I'm just trying to get through the day 1 hour at a time. Thanks again to everyone who gave me a reality check. It helped me find the courage to stand up for myself, even though this is one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. Update 2. It's been a couple of months since my last update. I wish I had better news about how things turned out, but unfortunately, the drama isn't over. In fact, it got a lot more complicated. After I left and called off the wedding in May, I went no contact with Sarah for a while. I needed to heal. I focused on myself, moved my essential stuff out of our apartment, with a friend accompanying me in case things got messy, though Sarah wasn't there at the time, started individual therapy, and leaned on my friends and family. It's been hard, but day by day I was starting to feel a bit more human again. I missed the woman I thought I was going to marry, but I definitely didn't miss the stress and suspicion. Sarah respected my request for no contact at first. The flood of texts and emails gradually stopped after a couple of weeks when I didn't respond. I heard through a mutual friend that she was not doing well and had taken a leave from work. I tried not to think about her at all, because every time I did, I'd get this mix of anger and sadness. By early July, I was starting to feel like I might eventually be okay. I wasn't crying every day, and I even went out with friends a few times and managed to have fun. I thought the worst was behind me. Then, about a week ago, Sarah reached out to me again, and it was intense. She didn't just text, she actually showed up at my parents' house, where I'd been staying some weekends to get out of the city. It was the first time I'd seen her in person since May. I was shocked to find her on my parents' doorstep, eyes red and looking very nervous. I almost shut the door in her face, but she blurted out, "Please, I have to tell you something. It's important." She was shaking, and I could tell this wasn't some ploy to win me back, at least not directly. She looked genuinely scared, so against my better judgment, I stepped outside to talk, while my parents stayed in the other room. Sarah told me she was pregnant. I think my heart actually skipped a beat, and I just stared at her, speechless. That was not what I expected to hear. My immediate emotional cocktail was shock, confusion, and a weird swirl of anger and excitement and dread all at once. I managed to ask quietly, Is it mine? Given everything, I had no idea what to even hope for as the answer to that question. Part of me was terrified it was mine. Another part of me was terrified it wasn't. She teared up and said she wasn't sure. She believes she is about 8 weeks along. That timing puts conception around early June. We were intimate a few times in late April and early May, around when we briefly reconciled, and she agreed not to invite Jake. We definitely slept together the night after that big fight, when she promised to cut him out. On the other hand, she admitted that after I left in mid-May, she and Jake did see each other. She claims it was a comfort thing, and that she was an emotional mess, and one thing led to another. So yes, they slept together too, in late May and a few times in June. So the ugly reality is that the baby could plausibly be mine or Jake's. She said that from the dates, she truly doesn't know. She told me she desperately hoped it was mine. Honestly, hearing her say that didn't comfort me at all. I just felt ill. I think she imagined maybe if it's mine, I'd take her back and we'd raise the baby together or something. But at that moment, I was just numb. I asked her what Jake knows or thinks. She said she told Jake about the pregnancy as well and that it might be his. According to her, Jake's reaction was to get angry and accuse her of trying to baby trap him, which apparently hurt her feelings. Go figure, actions have consequences. He told her he wants a paternity test and that he's not committing to anything unless it's proven he's the father. She also said Jake is now keeping his distance from her. I guess having his fling turn into potential fatherhood reality check was not in his plan. So here we are. She basically came to me hoping I'd be the good guy and reassure her or something. I didn't. I told her flat out that we will of course be doing a paternity test as soon as it's medically possible. Until then, I am not making any promises or decisions. I tried to keep my cool, but inside I was fuming and freaking out. I also told her that aside from discussing the pregnancy logistics, I didn't want any other contact. This is about the potential child, not us. She seemed both upset and understanding. She kept saying she was sorry, that this is all her fault, that she ruined everything. At one point, she reached for my hand and said, "If it's yours, maybe this is fate giving us a second chance?" I nearly laughed, more like choked at that. I pulled my hand away and said, "Please don't do that. Don't spin this into something good. This isn't some fairy tale where a baby fixes what's broken." She started sobbing, and I had to look away because I was afraid I'd either start yelling or break down myself. I did tell her that if the child is mine, I will do the right thing as a father, but that does not mean we will get back together. I'm not going to marry her just because of this, especially after everything that's happened. I also said if it's not mine, then this really is goodbye for good. After that painful conversation, she left, crying and apologizing yet again. I went back inside my parents' house and promptly had a kind of panic attack. I couldn't breathe, started trembling, the works. My parents comforted me and are being very supportive, but this whole situation's just a lot. So that's where things stand now. I'm waiting on a paternity test, which we plan to do via a prenatal blood test in a couple weeks, since she'll be far enough along for that.